So this afternoon you're going to be hearing from Olivia and Susie, who are both biology students at Flinders Uni. We have a huge range of degrees available in biology at the university, so we've got a bunch of them on the screen at the moment. Well, all of our biology related degrees. We have specializations, which are specific degrees that go in depth into a topic. But we also have majors in biology, so if you know you're interested in biology but you're not really sure what you want to do, I'd recommend you take a look at the Bachelor of Science and then choose a major in one of these biological subjects instead. What we're going to be doing today, though, is hearing from a couple of students at Flinders about things they've done in their studies in biology. So I'm going to introduce them, well, now I guess. We've got with us Susie and Olivia, who both did a Bachelor of Science, or Susie is in the process of doing a Bachelor of Science, and Liv's doing a PhD. I think that's just about enough from me, so Liv, I might hand over to you to talk about your student experience.
Okay, hi everybody.
Next slide. No, okay.
So, as Ella mentioned, I'm now a PhD student in my final year. I did a Bachelor of Science in Ecology and Evolutionary Biology at Flinders, and now I research weird genetics and internal parasites in Australian native bees. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing now. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Right.
There we go.
Thank you. So, I think a lot of people don't know that Australia even has native bees. We actually have about somewhere up to 3,000 species, and a lot of people actually know the honeybee and the bumblebee, which aren't Australian, they're actually from Europe. But we do have a whole range of different colours, flavours, shapes and sizes of Australian native bees. I work on a group called the Hylaeinae, which is quite a big word with a lot of vowels in it, but they're also called the masked bees, and you can see that they have sort of shapes and stripes on their faces. They occur across Australia. They are usually very small, black and mostly hairless. They look kind of waspy, so a lot of people miss them, but I can guarantee that you will have some hanging around your yard. In Australia, we think we have around about 500 species of this group, and I'm looking at their weird genetics and a bacteria that they have called Wolbachia, and I want to know why they have these things and how they have them. And this is what the bacteria looks like. So those greenish shapes are all the bacteria, and they live inside insect cells. They don't infect people or other animals, they just infect insects. So how do I do research? I wanted to do something that got me out and about and doing lots of different things. So I like to go out and do field work. So I start by getting my samples. Then I like to do a bit of lab work as well. So I work in DNA. So I have to extract DNA from my samples, and then I have to analyze it. And that looks really complex, but it's where you start answering your questions, which is the really fun part of doing research. So I've been around Australia a lot to collect bee samples. This is all the places I've collected my bees from. We have lots of species in Australia of bees and other insects that actually haven't been named yet and actually even discovered. So my lab group is trying to identify bees using DNA technology. And what we found is that, yes, Australia does actually have a lot of bee species and a lot of new bee species as well. And I'm working specifically on that group, the masked bees. And one of the things that we've also discovered is that Australian bees have a lot of this bacteria Wolbachia, which you can see in this insect cell, which is really interesting, but it's probably not bad for them. So it probably is quite a normal thing for them to have. Another thing that we do in our lab group is we go to Fiji once a year, and we take undergraduate biology students to Fiji to do bee research. Some of the things that we've got students to research is asking questions about how species become species. So we found that in Fiji there are at least 26 native bees. Originally we only knew of 4. Most of those are now isolated on the top of remote mountains. We also want to know things about how they behave in their environment, what do they do, And so we ask questions about their pollination. So they are actually super generalist pollinators, which means they pollinate pretty much anything. They're not fussy at all. And the next things we're doing from now are looking at how these bees will react to climate change. Some of these bees we know are going to do very well because they like the warm climate, but the ones on the mountain tops where it's cooler may not do so well. So that's something that we're getting students to look at now. And that is it from me. So let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks very much, Liv. Just want to reiterate, if you have any questions for either Liv or Susie, please do drop them in the chat. Susie, over to you.
Cool. So my name is Susie, and I'm going to be talking to you today about my exchange I did to Malaysia at the start of 2018, so at the end of my first year of university. So as Ellen's mentioned already, I'm in my 4th year and I'm studying a combination of molecular biology and mathematics. So for those of you who don't know already, molecular biology is kind of the study of all the really, really small things involved in biology, so things like DNA and proteins are what I'm interested in. And mathematics kind of carries on from the mathematics that is taught in high school. And throughout my kind of university career, I've become interested in bioinformatics and computational biology. These are relatively new areas of science, which kind of are an overlap of maths, biology, and computer science. People who are bioinformaticians look at big data, so files which might be terabytes in size, and try and come up with creative ways to kind of analyze this data. Like I mentioned, at the end of my first year, I went on exchange to Malaysia, and while I was in Malaysia, I looked at networks and network theory, which is an approach that bioinformaticians often use to look at data. And here I was looking at the bacterial metabolic network. So these are networks of all of the chemical reactions which occur in bacterial cells. So I was really lucky and I was able to get a scholarship which kind of covered the cost of my flights and my accommodation and my food while I was away. So that kind of took away the financial cost of travelling overseas. And this was a part of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trading New Colombo plan. So that was really good. And once I was over there, I studied at the Institute of Mathematical Sciences at the University of Malaya. Because this was like a specialised mathematics institute, there was lots of mathematicians around who were able to help me with the project that I was working with. And also whilst I was in Malaysia, I had the opportunity to attend different government meetings and meet Malaysian politicians, where we discussed things like science policy in Malaysia and how they could potentially increase innovation. So if you see that picture on the bottom right hand corner, we can see I'm with some of the Malaysian politicians just there. So I just want to talk a little bit about network theory and the project I was specifically working on. Network theory is a branch of mathematics where we kind of make these really big dot-to-dots, like we can see on the diagram there, where we've got lots of big circles connected to other circles by lines, and we kind of study the way that different things are connected together. And one of the things that we're often interested in is looking at how well the network is connected. So say the big dots there, they are connected to lots of other dots. So we say that the things that are highly connected have high centrality. And we can use these concepts to kind of understand how bacteria work. So we were specifically interested in looking at chlamydia pneumoniae, which is a respiratory infection that is quite common in poorer countries, and trying to maybe look at how we could kill it. And one idea that you can kind of look at, maybe when you're trying to look at how you could kill a bacteria, is to look at the chemical reactions which are very important. And these would look like in a network. If we made a network of all of the chemical reactions that occur in a bacterial cell, the chemical reactions which are really important for the bacteria to live would be highly connected to the other chemical reactions. So they would be really big circles in the network above. So for me to do this involved a lot of coding. I kind of sat at my laptop a lot of the time with a beautiful view of like a rainforest outside, coding away, trying to make and analyze a range of different networks for the bacteria. So here we can see the network that I initially started with. This is the network of all of the reactions occurring in the bacteria. However, once I did some programming and worked out which reactions were the most important, just removing 3 of the most important chemical reactions which I'd identified had made the network much less dense. So maybe this bacteria here that has less chemical reactions would probably actually be killed. So maybe if we were able to make a drug which targets these chemical reactions, then we could maybe successfully kill this dangerous bacterial species. Now, while I was in Malaysia, I still had plenty of time left to travel and do some sightseeing, even though I was at university during the week. I went to lots of beaches, I went to temples, and really got to experience the Malaysian culture and also eat lots of really nice food. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Susie. Like I said before, if you do have any questions, please do drop them in the chat. And we do indeed have a question for Liv to start with. Do bees in other parts of the world have the same or similar bacteria?
Yes, actually. So that bacteria, Wolbachia, is a really common insect bacteria. We know that for other insects around the world it's very common, but we weren't sure about Australian bees. And it is common in Australian bees, and it does occur in other bees around the world as well.
Cool. If you've got any other questions, please do drop them in the chat. While we're waiting, I've got a question for Susie. So your scholarship to go to Malaysia, did that cover everything, or was there still stuff you had to save for or had to pay for on your own?
It covered absolutely everything. I actually had money left over, which was like a nice little bonus
That's really
at the
cool.
end of my trip. Yeah.
And was it difficult to apply for the scholarship?
No, not really. I actually got an email sent to me, and I kind of thought, oh, that sounds pretty good, going to Malaysia to do some maths. So I applied, and I was very lucky I got it. So it was pretty straightforward, and the money came through before I booked my flights and everything.
Cool. Another question in the chat for Susie. Have you been able to apply your findings yet to kill the respiratory bacteria?
No, I haven't. Unfortunately, when I left, I kind of left my work with the mathematicians at the Research Institute, but getting back in touch with them and seeing what's happened might naturally be a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that'd be very cool. In my experience as a chemist, the identifying the thing that might work takes a long time, and then actually making it takes a long time, and then making sure it's safe to use. So it could be a few years, but it's a good start.
Yeah.
If you've got any other questions, please do drop them in. I've got a question for both of you in the meantime. What do you plan to do after the end of your current degrees? Liv, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I really like working on bees. They're sort of a very easy... I like insects in general, and bees are a really easy insect to work on. They're really easy to catch, and they're pretty easy to find. But I'm also interested in maybe working in biosecurity, working in the sort of opposite way to what I do now. Instead of discovering species, like applying methods to control species that are now pests would be an interesting turn of events for me.
Yeah, cool.
And after I finish my degrees, I hope to complete a PhD like Liv. Hopefully in the kind of space of bioinformatics. I'm very interested in disease, and would also like to maybe do some bioinformatics involving viruses. And once I eventually finish a PhD as well, I'd be interested maybe in working in different like research labs, hopefully doing like postdoctoral fellowships, which are like the kind of like projects you work on after you finish your PhD. And I'd really like to travel and do maybe bioinformatics overseas and in different countries.
Cool. Do Australian bees sting as much, or like are they dangerous to work with at all?
They do sting. We have actually got stingless bees, which bite you.
Oh, okay.
But most bees will sting you. They're not as... so if you react to honeybee stings, you probably won't react to native bee stings, because honeybees have evolved venom specific to mammals, so they're maximum damage to mammals, but other bees are just general deterrents, so you probably won't react. And they're a lot calmer and easier to handle as well, so you can sort of handle a native bee and it would tolerate it, whereas a honeybee loses its patience much more quickly.
Do they occupy the same area? Like, is there a risk you'll get honeybees when you're looking for native bees?
Yes, definitely. Right. There are honeybees everywhere. You'll see honeybees before you'll see anything else. So you definitely need to be careful of honeybees when you're working with native bees.
Right. Another question in the chat, did you both do a lot of biology in Year 12?
I just did the standard Year 12 biology, just one kind of subject in biology. Honestly though, I think if you were looking to study biology at university, it would be helpful, but if you didn't do it, you could definitely still do a degree in biology at Flinders.
The same for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just did the normal biology as well.
Right. Do the native bees have many predators?
They do have a lot of predators. Things like birds and also wasps as well. But often their predators are very specific to the species. So, yeah.
Cool. If you have any other questions, please do drop them in the chat. In the meantime, I just want to highlight again the degrees that we have around biology, so specializations and majors. If you're not sure what's involved in all of these, but you want to know more, I would recommend going to our website and clicking on this button here, the View Study Program button, so that will tell you exactly what topics in the degree you will be studying if you choose to do that degree. So you can get really into detail and figure out what the difference between animal biology and aquatic biology is, for instance, that sort of thing. Another question in the chat, can Susie's research with chlamydia bacteria be applied to other bacteria? Could this help with antibiotic resistant bacteria?
Yeah, maybe, potentially. I guess the main thing with my research that I was looking at was a method that we could actually look for identifying the most important chemical reaction. So yeah, I assume if the people at Malaysia have found it successful, you could apply it to different bacterial species, and yeah, could potentially maybe be important for antibiotic resistant bacteria.
Cool. Thanks. Keep on adding those questions if you have any. In the meantime, I also just want to highlight some upcoming webinars that we have. So we're running one on engineering next week, a panel, so you can ask people whatever you want. If you're interested in chemistry, we're doing a student experience in chemistry the week after that. And then the week after that, we have another student panel in IT. So you can register for those webinars there, or if you're watching a recorded version of this, we'll put a link in the description as well to register for them. If you have any other questions for us and you are watching the recorded version of this, the best place to contact us is stem@flinders.edu.au. I'll get that and I can pass on any extra questions to Susie and Liv if you need. But if you also want to discuss your degree in a little bit more detail, the best people to talk to is the prospective students team. So you can book one-on-one appointments with them, you can chat at length about the sorts of degrees you want to do and what you're interested in doing. They're a really, really good resource. One more question in the chat. Do you have help from lecturers for your research projects?
So I am supervised by a couple of lecturers at Flinders, and I've had a couple of other projects that I've done here as well, and they're always have academics and lecturers around to help.
Yeah, I agree with that. All of the projects I've done while I've been at Flinders, I've had either one specific supervisor or a few specific supervisors, and I would always go to those few people that were designated for my project whenever I got stuck or needed some help with something.
Cool. Do any of you have anything else you'd like to add? Or either of you, sorry, have anything else you'd like to add?
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you both very much for joining us. One more question, just under the wire. Do you get to choose your research project?
I did. I actually was on a different research project originally, and I discovered this weird genetics in bacteria, and I thought that's way more interesting than what I'm doing. So then I talked to my supervisor, and they said, yes, do that. If you want to do that, do that.
Cool.
Yeah, my project was actually given to me. I didn't get a whole lot of say because it was advertised as part of the scholarship program, so I kind of went over to Malaysia and then found out what my project was and had to do it. But luckily it was very interesting and still flexible. If I found something I wanted to investigate further, I could. But a lot of the time when you do projects at Flinders, you do get a choice of what you do and who you do it with.
And if you're doing the research, you get the opportunity to make it your own as well.
Yeah, kind of direct it, what direction you want to go in.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, thank you both very much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your experiences. That was really interesting. And thank you to everyone in the webinar for joining us too. I hope that was useful. We're going to leave the chat open for a little bit longer if anyone else has any extra questions, but I'm going to turn the audio and the video off now. So again, thanks for joining us. stem@flinders.edu.au if you want to get in touch, and we wish you the best of luck with your studies.